Hi, this is Scott with eTrailer. Today we're taking a look at and installing our Demco Air Force One for 2025 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited. The 5 main components you're going to need to get set up for flat tow is you're going to need your base plate, you're going to need a diode wiring kit, you're going to need a braking system, you're going to need your tow bars and your safety cables. Another nice thing to add on to your flat tow setup would be a charge line kit, and that's going to allow your RV to keep your battery charged on your towed vehicle's battery. If you have a motorhome with an air brake setup on it, this is a really good choice for you. This is going to give you everything you need to get you set up to flat tow your Jeep behind your RV. This is going to get set up with everything you need on your vehicle side and your RV. It's going to have your tank setup that goes onto your RV and ties into your air brake setup, and it's going to run out the back, come here, and it's going to have you all set up to run directly into your vehicle, and this will charge the air system and the control box that runs into your vehicle. With that, that's going to get set up to run a hose all the way in through your dash, through your firewall, into your brake pedal, and it's going to run a cylinder, and when you hit the brakes on your RV, it's proportionate, so it'll be proportional braking, and when you hit the brakes, it's going to pull that cylinder and brake the same amount of braking that you're hitting inside your RV. One of the nice things I like about this setup is you can't even really see that it's there while you're driving. I like them a lot better than the portable style. The portable ones you got to set in there and set up every time. This one you just jump in and you're ready to go. It's going to be hidden up underneath on your pedals so you can't even see it. One of the cool things with this system too, it's going to have an indicator light. So every time you hit the brakes on your RV, you're going to have an indicator that you'll be able to see through your camera system on your RV. So that way you know that your braking system is working on your Jeep while you're towing it down the road. The Air Force One also comes with something you'll probably never ever use, but it does have it as a safety aspect, and that is the breakaway switch. So in the event of any kind of a breakaway, it's going to pull this pin out and it's going to activate your braking system, stopping your vehicle. So if you have the Air Force One braking system or you plan on getting it and you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave any comments below, or pictures are also welcome. We'd love to see them. As far as installation, it is pretty straightforward, and if you follow the directions, it really isn't too bad if you just take your time. Other than that, if you don't have time to install this yourself, you can always take a look at our dealer locator and get something done for you locally. If it's something you want to do yourself, stick around, watch our video, and we'll help you get it installed. To start our installation for our Demco air brakes for our flat tow setup, it's a good idea to do that while we're doing the base plate and we have everything off. It just makes things a little bit easier. One of the hard things with these newer vehicles is trying to find a place to put our box and all of our components. So what I ended up doing is, while we had our base plate off, we had this plate behind here off, and I decided to go ahead and run some self-tappers into the bottom. I just put it in a vise and flattened out this rounded portion in the back, gave it a flat spot for me to mount to, and then just ran my self-tappers through, and then I went with some long zip ties and zip tied around it to keep it from vibrating, and it'll hold it nice and solid there. So now we have that in place. Now we can go ahead and get our breakaway switch put in place, and we have a tab for that. So we're just going to get that mounted right there. We'll take our hardware in our kit. We have our large washer and our bolt. Just going to run that through our tab, and we'll take our nylock nut from underneath and just get that put in place, and we'll get that tightened down. Now, what we ended up doing for mounting our air inlet is we had a short bracket that does not come in the kit, so you may want to pick one up. This is going to work good for giving it a good stable place to mount. So we got that mounted up, and I used one of those existing holes on the side, and I ended up just drilling that hole out bigger so our bolt would fit. And then I go ahead and bolted that down, and then I used my other hole as a template and drilled that hole out, and now we got our bolt running through. We'll just go ahead and get that tightened down. get our line set up for our air in. And air in, we're going to go right there. Want to leave a little extra so we don't have too much kink in it. Get it cut, make a nice clean straight cut, and we'll push that in place and you'll feel it stop. We're just going to go ahead and get that pushed into our air out, and that one's going to run up under the hood, so we routed that up and through on the driver's side. Now we're going to run that over to our firewall on the driver's side, where we'll go in through a grommet. Now right here next to our brake booster, we have a grommet, and we went ahead and popped that out, and that's where we're going to end up running our line through. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this grommet that we have here. It's just a plastic grommet, and I'm going to end up drilling a hole through it, and that's going to give me enough room to run any wire I need to run through, and also the line. Now when we're done with that, what we can do is pop that back in after we run all our line through it, and then we can seal that up with silicone, and it'll give it another really tight seal. We can just take our line and run our grommet onto that, and we'll take our line and we'll run that down in through the hole. Now we have our line ran in and through, and what this is going to do, we're going to run this over to our cylinder, which is going to activate our brake from our RV. So what we're going to do is get this mounted up, and we'll show you how we did this, because it's kind of tight in here and it's going to be really hard to see, but we'll show you what we did with this in just a second. Now we have our cylinder in place. We have it clamped around our brake pedal about halfway up, and we took our little plate and we screwed that into the floor, and then our holder that contains our cable, we have that screwed in right in the center. And we did tighten up the Allen wrench that goes in after we adjusted our cable. You want to have a little bit of slack in that. You don't want it too tight, and that should be good there, having a little bit. Now we have the end where we're going to end up running our line. So now we have our line through, and I like to leave a little bit extra so we don't get any kinking. We just want to cut that straight across. And now we'll just get that pushed down in place. You'll feel it click in place and come to a stop. So that's where we want that to be. And that'll be up out of the way so nobody's feet can hit that. Now we want to figure out a good place to put our indicator light, and this is going to be showing a red light through our camera in the RV. That's going to indicate that our brakes are working back here in our towed vehicle. So usually we would put that right behind our rear view mirror, but in this case we have this box here, and with that there's no way that the camera system is going to be able to see past this box to the back of the mirror to see it. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to end up putting it right over here on our dash, and that way our camera will still be able to see that. So what we're going to do is that's going to be stuck down with double stick tape. So all we're going to do is clean that up with a little bit of alcohol. Just make sure we don't have any dirt or debris there. Then we get that good and dry. Pull back our double stick. Now we'll just stick that right down, push it down, make sure we get it stuck down really good. Then we can hide our wire over here between where our dash speaker is, and then we'll run it down. Just going to tuck it behind this rubber seal. And then we can run it back in behind our trim all the way down. Now our black wire that comes out of our indicator light will go to the brown wire that comes off of our reed switch from the cylinder on our brake pedal. So we just want to crimp our black wire in place. Make sure you have a good tight connection there. Now that one, our brown wire, we'll crimp that onto the black. Now for our red wire we have in our kit, this is going to end up running out, so we're going to put crimp connector on that. And on this side is going to go to our red coming out of our black sheath wire, which is our indicator light. Get that put in place. Crimp that. Make sure you have a good connection. Now we can run this red wire out through the grommet that we put a hole in for our line. Now we can just take our red wire, pull that through our grommet. We're going to end up routing up and then over to our battery. Now our blue wire is going to go to ground. So we're just going to get another crimp connector on that. And I have a piece of extension wire, which is blue. Get that crimped on, and I'll run that through the grommet, and I'll run that out to our factory ground post underneath the hood. Our blue wire coming out through our grommet, we have our factory ground post right back here, and I already took the nut off of that. So I just want to cut it. And we'll strip off the end. Let's give that a good little twist. Get our ring terminal put on and crimped. Now we can put that on our factory ground post, reinstall our nut, and tighten that back down. For the black wire coming out of our breakaway switch, we went ahead and crimped that onto one of our wires coming out of our box. Now for our other wire, we're going to run this one over to ground. So I'll just take a ring terminal, get that crimped in place, grounded it right to the frame with our ring terminal and a self-tapping screw. Now for our orange wire that comes out of our breakaway switch, we did go ahead and crimp an extension to that. So now we're going to run that up, and we'll have that end up over by our battery. For our fuse holder up here by the battery, we just want to get that split in half and strip off both ends. Just twist the wires. Now we can take our ring terminal, get that crimped in place. Now we'll get a butt connector put on the other end. Now we have two of our wires. We have the one coming out of our dash. We're going to cut just a little bit of that off. Strip that back. I want to strip a little more on this one because we are going to be connecting the two wires together. Now we have our power wire that comes from the front. Now we'll take these two wires and run those together. we've done that, we'll take our fuse holder assembly we just made, and we'll get that crimped on. Now we'll take our heat source and heat this up, and we'll shrink it down. Now with a 12mm socket, we just went ahead and broke this nut loose, and this is where we're going to attach our power point. Now, we just get that installed. Now we took our vacuum line and we ran it into the port on our box, ran it up, around, and ended up tying off to a line right here. That's going to hold it in place. And then we jumped up, went up under, and ran it up near the radiator, came out, and ended up coming up right here to where our hard line comes for our vacuum line coming out of our brake booster. For our line, we're going to end up mounting right behind this bend on our hard line. So what we're going to do is we're going to get close to the bend, and we're just going to take our hose cutters and snip that. Now on the end of my hose, I'm going to take a little silicone, and anytime you're fitting any of these hoses, this is going to help you get these put in place. So I'm going to take our T and get that put on, get that seated down. And that way I have enough hose to work with there. Now with that, I can take my hose cutter again and just snip a section of that off. To make this a little easier, I'm going to end up cutting the bend out of our line. Now we have a straight shot to work with. Now we're going to end up with our T piece we made on this end, and that's going to be towards our brake booster. So I'll spray that down with a little silicone inside. Just run that in place. Silicone's going to help you get that slid up into place. It can be a little difficult, but just keep working at it and you'll get it there. Now we'll just get our clamp on here and just get that snug down. You don't have to get super tight with it. Just want it snug enough to hold it in place. Take our end that comes from the front and get that put into our T. I did put some silicone spray on that. That helps things go a lot easier. For our line coming up, the other end that we cut, I want to get some silicone on that as well. And in the end of our hose. Now we're going to get some line run down that. Now that we have that slid down onto our line, make sure you have it down far enough, and now we can get it clamped in place as well. Just make a little loop, that way it gives me enough line. So we're just going to cut a little bit of that off. Now with that cut, we can cut a section of it back. Now with that cut back, we're going to take one of our check valves, and we want the black facing our engine side. The white will be facing our booster. And again, we'll be using a little bit of silicone to make it a little bit easier. Now we'll take that in and run that onto our T. And having that loop is going to make it a little bit easier for us to tuck our line down. We'll have one more check valve to install, and now that we have all of our line ran up and we know we have all the link we need, we're going to need to put another check valve down here on our line. So I'm just going to cut a little section and a little silicone. And the black side is going to be going towards our unit. Let's get that installed. Now we can connect the other side to the white side. Now that we have everything installed, we're going to go back through and clean up all of our wires and get all of our hoses all tied up with some zip ties, and then we're going to go ahead and get ready to put our bumper back on. That'll do it for the vehicle side. Now we'll hop under our motorhome and we'll show you how to get the tank installed. Back here on our frame is where we have our tank system set up. This is where everything is going to originate from. This is what's going to have the air going to it, and it's going to have a tank that's basically going to be set up for our emergency air situation if there anything like that should occur. Now if we follow our line back, we have our supply line, and this is going to come off of our main tank. So what we had to do is tie into this. So we had to cut our air. So what we did is we got all of our air out of our tanks, and we had to cut into our line and get it just right so we can get this in between them. These are just push-in connections. You just want to make sure that you have your lines really clean and a nice even cut. And then when you pop them on, you just spray them down with a little bit of soapy water on all of your connections, and they pop right in. They go in nice and tight. And after we did that, we ended up with no leaks. Now, if you look here, this is where we teed out of. That's the reason we had to put this on, is because we needed to tee off this so we can get air to our pump system over here, which is our tank. So that'll pull the air into the tank itself, and then we'll run air down out of the tank, and it goes into this. It'll come out of this, up, and then it'll run all the way back to the fitting that we have mounted on the back of our RV, and that's where we get air to our vehicle that we're towing. Now we have another essential part of our system right here, and this is our metered line. And basically we're going to do the same thing as we set up our other one. You do want to do some tests to make sure that you have the correct line before you start cutting into this. So what we did is we teed into this one as well, and we ran a line out, over, and up into the top of our unit right there. And keep in mind, when you're running all of your lines, you want to make sure you have them up over something that's going to hold them up, where they're not going to get down into any moving parts like exhaust, any of your suspension components, or even your rear differential. You want to make sure they're up and suspended, and there's no chance of them coming down and making contact with anything. And that was a look at our Demco Air Force One for 2025 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited. I'm Scott with eTrailer, and thanks for watching.